So do you feel better about your team after the couple wins this past weekend?
No, I do. It's like I've been talking about over the last, 4 or 5 weeks. I think like a lot of teams in college basketball, you lose a player to an injury. You recognize his importance when he's not there. All of us have some players that are better than others, some that fill roles that no matter how hard we try, we can't duplicate without that player being available. And although Brandon Williams played only 18 minutes and, statistically his game doesn't jump out at you, I do think that he gives us much needed depth, which has plagued us during his absence. He gives us a playmaker, which I've talked a lot about over the last month. It's not just what he does, but it's his ability to get others shots. He had 2 passes in the Stanford game that led to a 3-point shot by Brandon Randolph, and I think a dunk by either Chase or Ira around the basket. And, he's very talented in terms of being able to get other people shots. So it was nice to have him back. I felt like it was a big lift for our group, and you felt it. You felt it both in the first half and also in the second, that we're a little bit deeper and especially as he continues to develop and grow, hopefully he'll have no setback. But we have more firepower, and as everybody in this room knows, we're not a blessed offensive team, even with Brandon, but I do think we have much more of an ability to score and be efficient when he's a part of our team. So we have our fingers crossed that he'll be able to get from where he is to the end of the season. He had 0 pain from the game the other day. We did not practice yesterday, but he's full go today. And we'll push towards Oregon State on Thursday.
Do you have a minutes limit for this weekend for him?
Not really a limit. I do think that there's probably a middle ground from maybe what he did against Stanford, and again, assuming the next 3 or 4 days go by with him in terms of no added pain or discomfort. I think that we'll be able to count on him a little bit more. That's our hope.
Coach Mike Pelton here with ABC 15 out of Phoenix. Do you have any comment on reports that you've been
No.
notified? If you are subpoenaed, will
No.
you testify?
No comment.
Coach, during the losing streak, your team had several games that you guys played well, but just didn't end up with the win. What did you guys see that carried over into these 2 victories, and how can that carry over more into future games?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah. So during the losing streak, you guys had several games that you guys executed, but just didn't end up with a win. How did the execution in those games carry over to these past 2 victories?
Well, no, you're right. And, the hard part is when you win, everything's easy. But when you don't, things can be more difficult and challenging. One of the things that I've learned this year is you have to be able to see each game for what it is. And if your team doesn't play well, then you don't play well. Sometimes the other team might be better, more talented. As hard as that is to admit for anybody, you have to look at it for what it is, as long as it's true. And I think that, the last part is if you're playing better or you have moments in games where you really do play well, but you don't leave with a victory, it's something to feel good about. It's something to build and grow from. And our team really did that over the last couple of weeks. I think it did lead into this past week's performances against Cal and Stanford. I recognize Cal has had their problems this year, but again, I can't really grade our game because of who we played. It's how we played in that game, our performance. And this week, especially in the Stanford game, I thought we had more good moments. I will say that for us to be successful in either of the 2 games this coming week, Oregon or Oregon State, we're going to have to play better basketball, more consistent, less bad moments, go to the free throw line. It's been a strength of ours. We're going to have to do a good job making free throws on the road and playing tremendous defense. Both teams are very good, and our first team, Oregon State, they're 10-4 at home. One of the top 4 teams in our conference. They have 17 wins. We respect them a great deal.
You've had to deal with more adversity than most coaches normally have to. Just since the start of the year, you had your 2 best players get hurt. You've had the long losing streak. You had to let go an assistant coach. The deal with Book, the subpoena thing that you don't want to talk about, Mike Bibby investigation. How much are you looking forward to this storm running out of rain?
What was the last one? Park?
Mike Bibby.
Okay.
Forward to less turmoil and less adversity.
You know, I have a 4-year-old nephew who had open heart surgery 2 days ago, my sister's son. I'm really concerned about that. Ryan Luther and Justin Coleman are seniors. I want them to have the best experience that they can have finishing up their season at Arizona. It's their one and only season here. We're welcoming Brandon Williams back. You know, for both Brandon Williams and his family, I want to make sure that everything that we do with him in practice, off the court, on the court, is in his overall best interest, and hopeful that he can have a great ending to his freshman year. I'm, like a lot of coaches, trying to put our team in a position to play our best basketball near the end of our season. You know, college basketball is about the finish. We've had seasons where we've won 33 and 34 games, and if it ends in a regional final, an Elite Eight game, as great as it was to win 33 games and get to a regional final, you know, a lot of times it's disappointing because you were so close to a Final Four and you didn't get there. It's about the finish. So when we approach this week and next week, and then we go to Las Vegas, you know, my focus is on making sure that our team is playing our best basketball. And, you know, like everybody in this room, I have a family, a wife, 3 kids. I love them dearly, and I think about them every day. That's my focus, and that focus hasn't changed and will not change.
And you said a 4-year-old nephew or niece?
No, that's all I'm going to say. But you know, that's something that I think deserves my attention and it really deserves my concern. So you know, when that's going on, as a coach, you know, that's difficult to juggle. You know, you have a concern, and you know, hopefully that will continue to go well. But if you ask me, you know, what I think about when I wake up in the morning, I just gave you the list.
Well, Coach, with all the scrutiny that has surrounded this program and the adversity you faced.
No comment. You can drive back to Phoenix.
You're not going to answer the questions?
Any basketball-related questions for
Well,
Coach?
the ultimate goal is still making the NCAA tournament. If it comes to the NIT, would you accept a bid? Or is that something
You know,
would not?
we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Again, you know, it's that's kind of results driven. That's for you guys to speculate about and report. For me as the coach, we got to worry about today and this week. I mean, we have our last road trip of the season, the ending of the Pac-12 season, and that deserves our undivided attention. And that's really where our focus is.
What have you liked most about Ira's progress this season?
Ira has hit his stride recently, but I think I talked about this almost from the onset, as far back as November. He's one of our best practice players. He's someone who works at it. I don't know if I can name really a practice or a week this year where he was distracted from what we're trying to do with him. And, you know, for every player, they hit their stride at a different point in their career. And when I think we're at the point now with Ira, if you watch him score the ball, maybe play with less turnovers, less fouls, and he's more experienced, he's more seasoned. I think he's really headed in the right direction. Played a great game against Stanford, and again, you know, to my point, you know, we have to get him to play 2 great games this week on the heels of the game at Stanford and continue his improvement and development.
You guys beat Oregon State with 13 threes, I believe. Is there another blueprint to where you guys can beat them on the road without having to hit so many threes?
Great question. The other part with Oregon State is I think we had 21 second shots. If I'm wrong, we had a lot of second shots. So I would say that if you talk to Wayne Tinkle, one of the points that he would make is, hey, you know, Arizona got a lot of second chance opportunities, and we converted some of those into threes as well. But we played the game without Chase. You know, Chase is a part of what we do right now. It'll be a different game. That was certainly a while back. So I think both teams continue to develop. I mean, before we played Oregon State the last time, we talked a lot about their, you know, undeniable experience, you know, where they have, you know, 3-year starters, 4-year starters. Their top 3 players, you know, Trace Tinkle, Stephen Thompson, and Ethan Thompson. Those guys are not only talented, but they've been through the battles, been through the ups and downs of a college basketball season. So I think when you look at their performances, I could see why Oregon State's had the season that they had. And we have to do a really good job against all 3 of them. but in particular Trace Tinkle. Sometimes when you're the coach's son, you don't get enough credit for what a terrific player you are. But I mean, statistically, he jumps off the page. He's one heck of a player. I'm certain that his career will go down as one of the best in Oregon State's recent history. And so you look at a guy like that playing a home game in late February, early March, we got to be ready for him.
Go ahead.
When you have, this kind of like a negative press situation come up, how much do you have to address your team and tell them, this doesn't concern you, that kind of thing?
They're used to it. We just move on.
So you're saying the potential subpoena has no effect on how you coach on the sidelines?
No comment.
Oregon was the only team that you lost to with the, I guess, lack of a better term, full complement of players that you have right now. Was there anything about that game that stands out compared to during the losing streak where you were missing either Chase or Brandon?
Yep. They really, their style won out on that particular night. Neither team scored well, but our turnovers really jumped off the page. Play against Oregon, number one, they always play incredibly hard. They mix in their full court pressure, and you have to be able to handle that full court pressure, take care of the basketball. We weren't able to do that on that night, and that was the difference in the game. But they're a hard-playing, well-coached, tough-minded team. And, you talk about an injury, their season with Bobo healthy versus the season they've had without him. You're talking about two different things. And unfortunately for a coach, that's the one thing you can't control. And but they've done a very good job, and I'm sure like us, they're trying to put it all together here down the home stretch. And they have a very tough home court. They beat us the last time. We know that both games this week will be very difficult.
How close is Alex Barcelo to realizing his potential and hitting his stride?
He's steady, a lot like Ira. I would describe him that his work ethic speaks for itself. Great teammate, works hard. You want him to shoot the basketball with a lot of confidence because I think everyone in the room knows he's one of our team's overall best shooters. And, hopeful that we can put it together. He can put it together where we can put him in a position to get a couple good open looks. That's only a small part of what Alex does, but because of our team, when he knocks in a couple threes, it makes a world of difference.
When Brandon was in last game, it seemed like you guys got many more open shots in the perimeter due to his penetration. How can he build on that with his health getting better? And what growth does Chase Jeter have just being a bigger facilitator in the paint due to that?
Well, the compliment that everybody pays a great guard is that they make their teammates better. It's like a quarterback in football. It's not just the statistics that they put up, but it's, life's easier for everybody because they make good decisions and they have talent. A guard like Brandon, it's not just the statistics that he brings to the table. Like I addressed earlier, it's giving our team more depth. And no doubt, maybe the best part of his game is that, he can find people and make plays. And when you have almost like a second player out there who can do that, Justin Coleman being the other one, it makes a difference. And I thought it made a difference even in our last game, even though Brandon only played 18 minutes and statistically he didn't have a great night. And, the other thing to keep in mind with Brandon, and we've gone through this with Chase, there's always a progression of when somebody gets hurt and then they start their comeback. Their comeback starts to happen, and they're not themselves on the court. It takes a little bit of time, and I'm sure in fairness to Brandon, it's going to take a few games for him to feel the best that he can out there.
Did you went through this process with Brandon? Did you guys learn anything more about what it actually was? I mean, was it related to that initial thing, or was it a sprain? Was something else?
No. Yeah, I mean, I'm not the doctor here, but it's a pre-existing condition. It's not an injury, and it's something that Brandon has dealt with and will continue to deal with.
Just some days his knee is sore and some days it's not.
Yeah, that's right. And, he's young. And, from a strength and conditioning perspective, he has the best of everything in terms of the way we work towards strengthening his hamstrings, to making sure that his body fat is as low as it can be. And sometimes it's avoiding different things. He's not like everybody else. It doesn't make sense for Brandon to do, for example, deep squats. Or sometimes if we bring a team back twice in a day, doesn't make sense for him to do anything on that second go-around. So I think those are the things that we're aligned to make sure that we protect him and hopeful that he can have the longest career that he possibly can have.
Brandon, you had to re-recruit him, essentially. Have you had to do that with this class of guys now kind of every few
No.
weeks?
No. These guys signed.
One more question, Coach?
Well, I have a couple actually, but one was Austin Carroll. Is he back? Is he going to be with you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant to update you on that. You know, he's still in Boston with his mom and his dad, and I think his dad's recovery is moving in a positive direction. You know, it's not up to me to get into, you know, what he's dealing with. It's a private matter with his family. I'll let them address that whenever the time is right. But it's certainly serious enough where he's been hospitalized, and you know, Austin's priority right now is his dad and his mom. And yeah, I think he'll rejoin us maybe at the earliest next week after the Oregon trip. But he'll remain there in Boston through the remainder of this week.
I was just wondering too, if you, with just your summary or maybe memory of last year's trip to Oregon. I mean, it was kind of an odd time, tough game at Oregon State. Alonzo's out, you're out the next game. You know, people are chanting things at DeAndre. He goes nuts in that game in Eugene. I mean, what's kind of the way you look back on that? I don't know if you do it at all.
I wasn't at the game.
Well, in
No.
that whole week, I mean, it was just kind of a weird, a tough week on and off the course.
Yeah. I'm dealing with the now. You know, things happened a year ago. I remember when Momo Jones banked in a shot at the foul line to beat Stanford. You know, I remember when, you know, Derek Williams blocked a shot against Washington and won our first Pac-10 championship. You know, those are all behind us.